Welcome to 12 Days of Cop. I'm your host, Andrea Edwards, and today I think where are we today? We're in Sweden, and I'm very, very happy to introduce you to a new friend for me as well, Sveinung Nygaard. I didn't get it right. I
It's
got to do it again.
pretty good. Well, up
No,
there, top English
oh,
speaking. Yeah, it's good.
but from now it's Sven, right?
Let's use Sven. It's a Norwegian name, Sveinung Nygaard. I'm based in Gothenburg in Sweden, but I'm from Norway. So I'm
Uh,
used to my name being pronounced in different ways. Hence, I go by Sven abroad.
yes, you're used to dealing with ignorant English-speaking people, right?
There are. It's a challenge for the mouth to reshape in different languages. Yeah, but I've been living in England, and it never worked quite my
Oh,
name. But
I think
yeah.
you'd find Australia even more challenging with the way we use our vowels. Anyway, um, so I don't know very much about you, but I've got a little bit of an insight. So I think we've just got to start with let's learn what you're all about and what your passion is.
Yeah, I'm a composer, film composer for film and theater and advertisement. So I've been doing that for many years across the world in different projects. So I'm in my studio now in Gothenburg. Used to live in London for 9 years and a couple other things. But yeah, I think the artistic scene and is where I'm coming from. And the I have my own project as well called Flyt, which means flow, where I travel around recording people all over the world and making kind of these ambient landscapes,
Mm.
which I call a dream that everyone can have. So you don't see it here, but I got instruments from all over the world here in my studio, and I enjoy that. So that's my
Nice,
my passion, the music. So I'm a guitarist and a composer.
nice. That was one of my potential paths when I was at university, composition, but I went in another direction. So I respect it because it's not easy. And if have you been very successful, like working for major films and
I've been doing some not super major films, but a lot of different projects. A lot of variety in the things. So you have to be consistent. I think that's one of the
Mm.
big questions when people are when you're approaching the film industry is like, can we trust you to make
Yeah,
good
right.
music, but to make it on time and not to be a good collaborator, and this takes time to prove. You can't just send a music file over and say, "Oh, that's fine." It's about
Yeah.
who you are also, because when it's speed up, when things are moving, they are really moving, and you have to be consistent artistically.
Mm.
So that takes time. So yeah, it's a journey, long journey. I've been doing for many years, and then I do different things. So I in different regions and different projects. So I have enough to do, and it pays the bills.
Yeah.
And I get to travel and meet people, which I find really interesting to meet artistic people who see the world in a very very different way.
Absolutely agree with you. And I was really I was really happy to recently read that there's lots of different types of intelligence, even though we only really value one. And
Mm.
obviously EQ, CQ, cultural intelligence, which I think is something you really get when you travel. But musical intelligence is an intelligence, and I only just
Mm.
found that out recently. And so, yeah, there you go.
It is. I studied mathematics, and people say mathematics is related to music by its number and matrices and that kind of thing, and its graphs. But no, it's much deeper than that. It's seeing patterns intuitively.
Hmm.
So music is all about connections and seeing shapes connect. So I think, yeah, music is part of the arts world, and I think the artist can embrace longer lines, maybe underlying factors. They can see connections where other people see only chaos, which I
Mm,
find deeply fascinating. That when people
mm,
just look to the surface, artists can need to go a little bit beyond that and see what's really going on here, for better or
yeah.
worse.
Mm,
Not just being looking for the bad thing, because that's one thing, but looking for, oh, have you thought about this? It's connected to that, and what does that mean to you if we, yeah, some new thoughts, basically thinking tangentially and that kind of thing.
mm. Yeah, no, absolutely agree. So, you're also part of the Climate Bards. Is that what it's called? The Climate Bards?
Bards for climate, something
Bards
about
for
climate,
Climate.
something about bards. Yeah,
So tell us about that.
yeah. I mean, this is kind of where my journey started. I mean, I grew up always with the knowledge that the climate was a little bit out of out of control and that kind of thing. But living in Norway, we didn't feel that so much. But it dawned on me the link between the artistic mindset and the problems of the world, and how we can take a step forward into the circle of society. Bards used to be known as the guys who were only use their art to praise the kings and the rulers and be paid to do that. We take it a bit further and we say, like, okay, you have your art form, now step into the circle and tell the stories that would help people understand their lives and understand their world. And so they can be any kind of art form, really. Yeah, we don't see the climate challenge now as much of a technical thing as a identity issue, because we know, or at least I knew, the reports from Gro Harlem Place and Silence was out of control. And it's going to be an identity journey back to find out who we really are, and that is a good journey, because I think the problems we see now come from our exploitation of the earth and shortcuts into wealth and shortcuts and all these huge aspects now manifest in the material world as part per million in of CO2 and all that kind of thing. But it all comes from ways of dealing with things in I want to control the world, I want to control other people, I want to have a shortcut to a better life without actually doing the work. So I think it's all, we can describe this as in non-technical terms as much as in tech terms.
It's a spiritual transformation that's required of all of us, right? And when people want to have an argument with me about it not happening, I'm like, I'm really not interested in arguing with anyone about it if they think that. Especially where I live, the waste crisis is on our doorstep, and it's horrendous what you see in the environment. So it's even. I just want to say to people, okay, you don't believe in climate change, whatever. Are you happy with our world? Are you happy with women and children being subjected to sexual slavery and violence? We haven't got it right. So and that's something that we've got to really go within and sort out. We've got to sort it out within ourselves, within our communities, our societies around the world, and help the poorest of the world rise up while we shrink our impact down.
For sure, and I can see from in Scandinavia that actually are longing to control the world in a rationalist manner and a technical manner has led us to be quite poor in terms of our. It's about having the developing countries reaching a level of whatever they need to come to, and we have to come down. But I think in a deeper way, it's actually some in the West, we have attached our identity to things and control and rationality, and we have to actually take a step not down or up, but sideways, and redefine and refine who we really are, who we want to be. And I think going a little bit wider, I think this is also some of the wars and conflicts we see now also reflect who we want to be and value choices in that. So I think the journey of having fewer things but being more secure in who you are in the West, not down to things but to who you are, is actually a very climate friendly way of looking at things, and also a very good thing for us.
And so what are the Bards for Climate release?
So we had a couple of different products, if you like. So we're developing these. One is Postcards from the Future, which is kind of a guided meditation about if you were to write a postcard from your future self back into your present self, what would you write? And it goes over a couple of hours. And we've been running these. And we run it also in conjunction with the prisms. Which is our main thing now during COP, where we prism things. We use it as a verb, where we listen in on what's being said. We choose a talk or a press conference, and then we listen actively. So what is going on here? Who's at the stage? If you view it as theater, how would you describe it? And how would this be? Can this be expressed in a helpful way? Because it's quite easy to be just saying it's bad, it's good, but often it needs translation into an emotional language, into a more coherent language, a more action-inviting language. So our role is to listen actively for these kind of points where these kind of key moments where we think this needs. I need to explain this in a different way. It could be in a musical way. It could be music with words. It could be words like poetry or prose. It could be paintings or dance. We have like one time was a lady dancing. What not the message, but what she felt when she saw the message, and this was an interpretation of it, and taking it further. So it's a way of training how to listen, but also narrowing back to the speakers. We've been getting some feedback from the speakers at COP27. We through via LinkedIn, but also developing ourselves and also spreading them on our Instagram account, Prisms of Bards, and the website. Yeah, Prisms of Bards is where we share our things now. Yeah, so we just feel these prisms, where we define them as an artistic reaction to a technical or political talk within the climate debacle situation, done in no more than a working day, and aim to stir emotion and be constructive in our response. And it's a powerful method to, when you listen with those kind of ears and eyes on, it is very powerful for the artist as well, I must say.
You know, I can imagine. And just like I think that we lack the ability to appreciate nuance, and you'll see people with such strong opinions one way or another. And it's like, well, yeah, I can kind of see that one and that one, but there's also all these other pieces as well. And we need to be thinking of it all holistically. So that ability to sort of translate, I mean, you're basically translating, because people are struggling. You know, I read so much technical, scientific stuff. And if I talk to people about it, they're like, what? I mean, the measurements of climate change are words I don't even know. I don't even know what they mean, but you kind of get used to reading them, right? But so if there's been one piece of news so far at COP28 that's sort of got your attention, maybe you're feeling positive about it, what would you say that would be so far?
I mean, leading up to the whole the COP, it was all this news about what at BBC and things that it would be used for oil negotiations, and that was not so good. But I feel it was good and maybe relaxing the environment, but a bit to release the news of the loss and damage fund quite early, and the historic breakthrough on that. Of course, with the problems it comes with, where does the money come from, and how it's distributed, and the amount of money, and who's paying the most. But still, getting to that point of responsibility from wealthy countries towards the other one. I think it's important historic step forward. So let's see if that will just be a sleeping pillow, and that will be the only result that comes out of the COP, or there will be actual other elements and resolutions come out of this. We see this problem as a complex problem, of course, climate, and so many people are looking for the silver bullet that will that will do the whole thing, and it probably won't. But part of the nature of media and is that it's very simplified. It's down to one person, two persons, one message that will do the whole thing. And I think it probably needs to be more organically than that. So let's see. So some of these things won't be like the change of somebody's heart, the change of somebody's hope is quite powerful things that can't maybe be measured or transmitted. So let's see where it ends up. But COP is not the only thing that will save the world in the end.
No, that's right. Yeah, look, I think whatever happens, regardless, we've just got to come together as a global community, and we've just got to say, right, let's get going, let's clean it up, regenerate, rewild, consume less, really reduce our impact at scale. We need 1 billion people sort of saying, I'm in, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be part of the change. And then we encourage everybody else, so we've just, no matter what happens, we've just got to keep moving forward and sharing a positive message, because people without hope are not going to change anything, right? If you think...
on that note, because I think something we need in the West it's not necessary. I know there are problems in different countries, but we don't necessarily need money and wealth. I think we need purpose. We need
Mm.
something to be on fire for, something to give our lives to. And I think if you do that, the negative sides will be transformed into positive purpose tasks. That this is something I'll do, not because it's yes, it's not a negative. It's not giving up. It's actually like letting go of some things that were holding us
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
It's
could be
true.
transformed as well.
I like it. All right. Growing up in Norway, and then having lived and travelled around the world, was there a moment for you when you realised that we were in trouble and that we needed to do something about it? Can you remember an epiphany or just a moment?
I think I still remember the couple of things from when I grew up, which they're always there. We have a lot of lot of nature in Norway, so we're quite used to being close to nature. But I remember our Prime Minister Gro Harlem Brundtland's report for the UN back in the 80s. It felt very dark, but quite distant, I must say. And then the other thing I just kind of remember was kind of ozone layer and everything that went on with that and how that worked out well in some ways.
Mm.
But I always felt it was not about me and my skill set and my role. Always trying to reduce things, of course. But it was kind of 5 years ago I realized there's an overlap here between the climate problem, which I always saw as a technical UN a bit distant thing, to and that technical climate thing and the artistic side. And then I realized, okay, there's something here that's going on that's not just about climate. The climate is a symptom of something deeper, and
Mm.
then we have to approach that. And that gave me some tools and some kind of call to action for myself. I was at a conference, climate conference in Switzerland, with an organization called Initiatives of Change, and it was a lot of people from different realms and different parts of the world, and I felt there was a kind of a call for me to step forward with the arts.
Mm.
Um, that was probably 5 years ago, so quite recent, really, in
Yeah.
terms of never been kind of an activist because I always felt there was something that didn't quite fit me.
Mm. Yeah, I think we've got to choose our path. You know what? I'm a conversationalist. That's what I like to do. So for me, it's like having great conversations with people like you, and just sort of learning about what you do, so that hopefully you can inspire people that are watching this from around the world. So
Mm,
yeah. So I grew up in Australia. We're talking about the ozone hole, right? I grew
yeah,
up in Australia, so we lived that experience. And
yeah.
when you're young, you put like a microscope over your hand to burn your skin through the sun. Do you
Mm.
ever do that? Well, that's kind of
No, I did. I was a scout who tried to put things on fire and things like that.
all right.
But
Right, yeah. I remember my brothers used to always burn themselves, but then it actually started to get really. We could feel it. We could feel the heat, and skin cancer started to really take off. Two members of my family have problems with skin cancer, and just a couple of weeks ago, the New Zealand government announced that the ozone hole isn't repaired like they think it is.
uh,
It's actually getting bigger. So that was pretty disappointing to hear that. Um, you
no.
know, so yeah, because that's the seventh of the nine resilience. So I think that's the seventh one that we've now crossed. So it's like it's a bit disappointing. All right, so I know that you're not part of the core It's For You team,
Mm,
but the whole concept of It's For You is to really just sort of to remember to celebrate what's important in life, whether it's, that real connection with your community, or giving art and creativity and entertainment to people. Or so
mm.
when you think about it, when you've talked to Inga Mette, what is It's For You? How does it speak to you as an idea?
I think we need to go from a structural to a kind of empowering the individual. I think there is a link between, which find really inspiring, that people have power, and I think this was what we see on the top level, that the politicians and big business, they actually listen to people. when the people vote with their feet, moving business out of Russia, and then moving off fossil fuel, I think is very powerful. So we should never look down on the individual choices and discussions, and the power of hope and power of taking one step in the right direction. I think this is probably what's the main thing that's missing. And I feel when I watch the cops that there's an elephant in the room, and the elephant is, what will people say? Can I get my people behind me in my country, in my business? Will they buy our product? Will they vote for me in the next election? So I think this kind of not individualistic, but individual change does lead to big change, and as you've seen it in the past. And I think this is probably what needs to happen: the empowerment of the individual, not as well. I'm not going to be critical of it, because there's a role to being activist and being critical of the powers that be, but there's also a role of being, I'm part of the problem, which means I'm part of the solution. And my individual choices actually make a difference, and how I speak about things is powerful. Some of the countries I've traveled to, you can see hopelessness on the walls, and you see it in the way that there's no investment in painting the walls, rebuilding things. So sometimes hope can be a huge economic force, for bad and for good. And I think this could be one of the main things that we need to help people realize, that we have some power, and how we speak actually doesn't just describe the reality, but also makes a new reality. So we need to speak the right way to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. Take care of our home, and the painting is up. You're absolutely spot on. So one of my friends here, Joe Augustin, he believes that the climate fight will be won through art and artists, because that the ability to sort of visualize or capture complex ideas in all sorts of different art forms is important. So for all the creative people out there in the world, what do you say to them? Like 5 years ago, you stepped into your voice and your courage to talk about it, which is obviously a big decision, right? Because it can backfire on your career. 2018 for me was when I went full throttle, but for a long time been doing it gradually. But so, what would you say to anyone who's like wants to be part of it but doesn't know how to get started? What, apart from obviously following you guys and seeing what you're doing on Instagram and in other social media channels, but yeah, what are your thoughts?
Pick up your brush, make something, but realize that your brush and your guitar or your tool is an expression of your way of seeing the world. And the way of seeing the world, if you use it in a good way, is connecting dots, so people can realize that there is something underlying structure that could be good and lean into. The hero's journey, which is so prevalent in movies and in sagas, fairy tales, is going from a normal world, having a problem, going to the darkest cave and finding the elixir and coming back with that. I think that is the artistic journey, to go to places where people don't have time or the mindset to go there and find these kind of keys that unlock action. So if we can paint a picture of the world as coherent and a good place, that is very powerful. And realizing that the chaos has potential. The word crisis doesn't necessarily mean a negative space. It means a space where there's uncertainty of direction, at a critical point where things can go in different directions. And artists can embrace that chaotic space as a place of potential, a place of new beginnings and new ideas. So art does have an entertainment role. It does have a self-expression role, but also has a role of painting, opening the window and letting new light come in, or opening so people can see a new landscape. And that is the key for me to understand my art. And then and then going from there, and then being better at my instrument, better at paint, better at whatever you do, but embracing that role of being the window opener for people who accepted the house without windows, and then people will see it, and then they will believe in it. So I think the artistic mindset is hugely powerful.
Yeah, just from the way the mind works and the way it thinks when you're a creative, right? As we started with. All right, so we'll finish up. But any final thoughts that you want to pass on to everyone?
I'm inspired by these kind of networks, like It's For You and our network, and all these things that are going on in the background that don't get all the attention, and the people that have the connections between people is hugely powerful. So we need to engage like you mentioned, in good conversations, and some of that conversation will be wordless, and some of that will be artistic, and let's keep that going.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely critical. And the It's For You program, if you have an opportunity, they're doing live streaming at least once a day, if not more. Great conversations, amazing people from all over the world. Some of the guys that I'm talking to from Africa, or I spoke to this amazing lady from Pakistan. These people are they're just incredible. And they're right on the front line dealing with some of the worst consequences of it. So definitely check them out. All right. And thank you so much. It's been really nice to meet you. And I'm definitely going to keep an eye on what you're doing and get some inspiration as well. All right. You just paused.
Good.
So. I'm coming.